Was the 1970s the golden age of Christmas decorations? Before the world became obsessed with perfectly curated trees, the magic of the holidays lived in frayed silver tinsel, the soft electric hum of old string lights, and the sharp scent of pine mixed with itchy spray snow. Step inside this cozy vintage living room and rediscover 25 vintage Christmas decorating trends we've quietly left behind. Remember the moment you stood close to the tree, mesmerized by the colored liquid inside, constantly bubbling like a tiny coffee percolator? Bubble lights are one of the most enchanting decorations ever to grace a Christmas tree. Introduced by Noma Electric in 1946, they peaked in popularity throughout the 1960s. These lights contained colored liquid in a thin glass tube, heated by the bulb inside. As the temperature rose, the liquid began to bubble and move incessantly, creating continuous motion on the tree. Children were often mesmerized, staring at this movement. It usually took about 5 minutes for them to start bubbling. Unfortunately, they had some drawbacks. Each light was a piece of very fragile glass, and when broken, the mysterious liquid inside could spill out. Although this liquid was relatively non-toxic, parents still worried their children might drink it. Moreover, these lights consumed significant electricity, noticeably increasing the power bill. By 1975, concerns about the energy crisis and safety regulations significantly reduced their popularity. Modern LED lights do not generate enough heat to recreate the authentic bubble effect, although reproduction versions do exist. We miss that gentle, bubbling magic, an unpredictable charm of vintage items. They brought a lively feel, as if the tree itself was breathing and participating in the festivities. What made us willing to risk a cut finger just to touch these fragile glass spheres, shimmering like fine china? Shiny, bright ornaments were the epitome of elegance on the 1970s Christmas tree. They were fragile, brilliant, and anxiety-inducing whenever they were hung, requiring maximum care, as if we were handling fine china. They were made of sturdy glass, featured vivid colors, and stood out with detailed hand-painted designs. Popular and brilliant colors like pink, yellow, and turquoise stripes not only reflected light from colored bulbs, but potentially even static electricity from the old TV in the living room. Shiny, bright ornaments were mass-produced in the US after World War II, and quickly became an essential item in every family's holiday decor. The strongest nostalgic feeling associated with them is the storage box. Every box contained one or two slightly chipped items, which were precisely the ornaments placed at the back of the tree, where they could hide their imperfections while still contributing to the overall sparkle. Their sparkle and light reflection made them an indispensable part of the messy and dazzling Christmas beauty of that era. Today, these ornaments are still sought after by collectors. They represent an era when fragile glass items were treasured and handled with love, a stark contrast to today's durable plastic items. The splendor of Shiny Bright defined the memory of a 70s Christmas tree, where everything was radiant and captivating. Step into the living room in the days before Christmas, and you'd be mesmerized by all that sparkle. Aluminum Christmas trees were the pinnacle of modern sophistication in the late 1960s. They represented a bold shift from the tradition of real trees to a glittering, chic, space-age symbol. The Aluminum Specialty Company produced over 1 million of these metallic wonders, priced between $15 and $25 at a time. These trees came in various sizes from 2 to 8 feet, with branch tips resembling silver bottle brushes, creating a distinct and shimmering appearance. But do you remember you couldn't use traditional lights on them due to the electrocution risk from the conductive metal? Instead, families had to rely on the color wheel. These were rotating discs with colored gel segments that spun slowly, bathing the tree in constantly changing hues. It was this movement of light that brought life to the glittering aluminum tree, creating a unique dynamic light show. Unfortunately, their popularity sharply declined by the late 60s. The primary reason was the 1965 Special A Charlie Brown Christmas, which openly criticized their artificiality, leading to a sharp drop in sales by 1969. The distinctive heavy sparkle that the 1960s tree offered now only exists in photographs. These giant plastic candles were likened to the silent sentinels of the holiday season, standing proudly in every front window. They symbolized a quiet promise that Christmas had arrived, and joy was spreading. Their defining feature was the plastic candle body, often red or yellow, and after years of attic storage, they might have slight scratches, bearing the marks of time and family love. The most magical thing was the ambiance they created. They didn't flicker, but instead emitted a gentle hum of electrical warmth. Plugging in these candles was often a small ritual assigned to children, making them feel like they had just lit a magical holiday lighthouse. As night fell and temperatures dropped, seeing the candlelight emit a warm halo through frosted or frozen window panes created an unforgettable Christmas atmosphere. The entire neighborhood owned them, turning the streets into a unified and warm display of festive light. These candles were considered tradition made of light and were rarely discarded. They were carefully stored and brought out year after year. Today, when modern Christmas lights are often battery-powered or have complex timers, we miss the simple yet profound feeling of just plugging them in once and leaving them lit until the new year. Owning this tree topper meant your Christmas tree automatically became the centerpiece of the neighborhood, drawing glances from passers-by. This design captured the imaginative, dynamic spirit of the decade. The defining feature of the Bradford Celestial Star was its internal rotating mechanism, combined with multicolored frosted panels. When plugged in, this mechanism created mesmerizing patterns that spun and danced on the ceiling and living room walls. This movement of light created an ethereal atmosphere, completely different from the static light of ordinary bulbs. It added a dimension of motion and color to the indoor Christmas landscape. In an era where outdoor decorating had not reached today's level of complexity, this interior light show was an incredible high-tech highlight. The Bradford Star is still sought after by collectors, and a well-functioning topper can sell for $50 to $150. It is a symbol of creativity and joy, an item we truly miss for its ability to transform a room into a small, festive universe. The feeling of sitting beneath that rotating, shimmering light, hearing the gentle hum of the electric motor, was the definition of Christmas coziness. Perhaps this is the only decoration that was both edible and yet almost never fully eaten. Every living room had a formal candy dish placed in a central location. This dish was usually heavy glass with a scalloped rim or intricately carved, sitting neatly on the coffee table. Inside this precious dish were rainbow ribbon candies, too beautiful to almost eat. The reality was that ribbon candy often stuck together due to humidity and time, turning them into a sticky mint candy sculpture rather than individual ribbons. Nevertheless, they were still admired as a work of art. Alongside the ribbon candy were jewel-toned sugar jellies, small, soft fruit slices that sparkled and always left a trail of sugar dust on your fingers. These candies appeared right after Thanksgiving and were admired until the new year. And interestingly, they were often not fully eaten unless someone sneakily nibbled a corner. This candy dish was the centerpiece of the holiday season, often placed next to a bowl of walnuts, Christmas cards, and perhaps some strands of tinsel. The sticky, sparkling sensation of the candy dish became part of the sensory memory of vintage Christmas, a unique blend of beauty and imperfection. If this video brings back fond memories, please support it. Your support helps keep nostalgic content like this alive. This is the decoration that created a perfect, sparkling look, but also drove everyone crazy with itchiness. Angel hair snow was a decorative material used to create a soft, shimmering, and perfect look for the final finish on the tree or mantle. When sprinkled on branches, it provided a dreamy effect, as if the tree had just been dusted with a fresh, sparkling layer of snow. Everyone knew the uncomfortable truth behind that sparkling beauty. Angel hair was made of spun glass fibers. Anyone who touched it vividly remembers the annoying, tiny itch it left on their hands and collars. Decorating with angel hair was an act of taking risks for the sake of art. Despite being itchy and uncomfortable, it was widely used because it had an almost magical utility. It made the light sparkle a bit more. The superb light reflection of the glass fibers compensated for the physical discomfort, making many families believe the risk was worthwhile for the ultimate Christmas beauty. Today, this material has almost disappeared due to health and safety concerns, but it remains a powerful Christmas memory, a mix of beauty and chaos typical of 70s Christmas. Cleaning up angel hair after Christmas was also a challenge, as those tiny fibers clung to everything, ensuring the memory of angel hair lasted several weeks after the holiday. When Hallmark launched Keepsake Ornaments in 1973, they truly changed the game in holiday decorating. Previously, ornaments were mainly glittering glass balls, but Hallmark introduced a new concept: ornaments that were not just beautiful but also told stories. They brought a fresh emotional depth to tree decorating. Hallmark Keepsake Ornaments allowed families to turn their tree into a personalized timeline of Christmas memories. Each year, families would buy a new ornament to commemorate a major event, a birth, a trip, or a special milestone. The collection included designs ranging from classic Santa Claus to references to pop culture, such as cartoon characters and symbols of the era. Their introduction transformed tree decorating from an annual task into a meaningful ritual of remembrance. Rare and early versions, especially those from the 70s, are now sought after by collectors. They are the most treasured keepsakes linked to personal stories. It was these items that solidified the idea that Christmas is about the accumulation of memories over the years, making each tree unique and irreplaceable. Look at the felt stocking hanging on the mantle. That was the true DIY masterpiece of 1970s Christmas. They were sewn with felt, love, patience, and about 1,000 sparkling sequins. Busilla kits were extremely popular. Mom or Grandma would spread the felt pieces on the dining table and spend weeks, often during long winter evenings, sewing on each tiny sequin, following the kit instructions. This wasn't a quick weekend craft, but a project that lasted weeks. Each stocking was its own story, often featuring festive images like snowmen, reindeer, or Santa Claus, with details cut from colored felt and appliqued. What was special was that they were often personalized by cutting out felt letters to embroider each child's name. The sequins caught the light from the fireplace and sparkled as if enchanted. These Busilla felt stockings are among the most treasured relics from that era, hanging along the mantle as powerful symbols of family love. They attest that Christmas was not about store-bought perfection, but love expressed through every stitch. Remember the warm, gentle glow emanating from the ceramic Christmas tree, something every child loved. The ceramic Christmas tree was a household staple, and almost every grandmother or aunt owned one. They were hand-painted decorations often made in ceramics classes, providing a special personal touch and glowing from within. The tree was studded with small, multicolored plastic pegs inserted through holes in the ceramic body, creating a jewel-like twinkle effect. The ceramic tree sat proudly on the TV console or a side table, casting a cozy, gentle light. The soft light from this ceramic tree, blended with the gentle hum of the TV playing the Yule log, was the definition of Christmas serenity. They were compact, perfect for tabletops or mantles, providing an alternative source of festive light to the main large tree. Did you know original ceramic trees, especially those from Atlantic mold or Holland mold, are now sought after by collectors and can sell for $100 to $400, depending on size and condition? Go home to Grandma's house and see if she still keeps this tree. Those glitter-covered cardboard houses transformed the display area into a magical winter village right under the Christmas tree. Putz Houses are tiny architectural models used to turn the space beneath the Christmas tree into a magical winter village. This tradition, though originating in Germany, remained an indispensable charm in Christmas displays. These small houses were typically made from thin cardboard assembled by hand and then covered in sparkling glitter. They had small cutouts in the back or base so that Christmas lights could shine from within, creating a soft and warm glow effect. Their handmade appearance, with slightly messy roofs and scattered glitter, created a charming, rustic appeal. Creating the Putz Village was a family activity, where everyone arranged the houses, mini pine trees, and perhaps added a small toy train running around. These models were imperfect, but that very imperfection added to their characteristic charm. They are symbols of imagination and handmade creativity, bringing a new dimension every holiday season. Before streaming services, Christmas music was played on vinyl records, and these albums were an annual event. Interestingly, the source of the most popular Christmas albums came from unexpected places. Tire stores like Firestone and Goodyear, along with RCA. Parents often brought these albums home as a complimentary gift or a special promotional item. The glossy album covers promised fantastic Christmas songs, featuring the voices of legends like Andy Williams, Perry Como, Doris Day, Bing Crosby, and Nat King Cole. This music filled the living room, mixing with the scent of pine needles, cinnamon-scented candles, and fiberglass snow. The most distinctive aspect of listening to music on vinyl was the sound. The gentle crackle of the vinyl record as the needle tracked across it became an integral part of the Christmas soundtrack, an auditory sign of the holiday season. Families collected these albums over the years, turning them into a musical time capsule of Christmases past. RCA Christmas albums became the soundtrack of the holiday season and were played on turntables across America during family gatherings. In the 1960s and early 1970s, flocking your own real Christmas tree at home was a Christmas staple. These kits allowed families to transform their trees into a snow-covered winter wonderland, costing about $3.99 in 1968, offering significant savings compared to professional flocking services. The process was extremely messy, but it was a memorable family activity. Families spread newspapers, mixed the solution composed of adhesive and white cellulose fibers, and spent hours spraying fake snow. Sometimes, people even used a vacuum cleaner in reverse to blow the flocking material. The results varied widely, from winter wonderland perfection to disasters that looked like sick trees. The most concerning part was that this flocking powder contained asbestos until 1969, creating health hazards that no one recognized at the time. In the end, even if Christmas was over, the cleanup wasn't. The cleanup work lasted for days, with white residue and artificial snow continuing to appear in the house for months afterward. By 1975, when pre-flocked artificial trees became more convenient, along with health and environmental concerns, this messy but memorable tradition had completely disappeared. We remember it as a Christmas tradition that required physical participation, despite accepting a bit of danger and a lot of mess. Despite the obvious fire hazard, many families of German or Scandinavian descent still insisted on using real candles on their Christmas trees throughout the 1960s. This was an old and respected tradition. Small white candles were carefully attached to the branch tips using special holders' cere clips. However, they were only lit for a few minutes on Christmas Eve, creating a warm, sparkling light incomparable to electric lights. This was a dangerous ritual requiring strict supervision. Families observed strict rules: never leave the room, designate a watch person, and always keep buckets of water and fire extinguishers nearby. The National Fire Protection Association in 1964 reported up to 8,000 Christmas tree fires annually, with candles being the leading cause. Insurance companies vehemently opposed this practice. By 1972, most cities had banned this dangerous practice, and insurance companies refused to compensate for candle-related fires. This dangerous yet magical tradition faded forever, giving way to safer electric lights. An army of glass festivities lined up on the bathroom counter, smelling of powder and aftershave, were none other than Avon Collectibles. Avon Christmas cologne bottles were an indispensable part of 1970s decor, often given as gifts. These cologne and aftershave bottles were molded in glass into the shapes of Santa Claus, snowmen, reindeer, and angels. They lined up on the bathroom counter like a festive army, ready to greet guests. Although they carried the faint scent of aftershave and powder, the important thing was that they weren't really meant for use but for display. Each year, another bottle was added to the collection. They were small, cast glass time capsules, holding holiday cheer and memories. Avon played a significant role in the 1970s holiday decorating. Their collection included ceramic figures and scented candles, all notable for their attention to detail and playful designs. Every year, a special truck arrived from the gas station. Not just a toy, but a symbol of quality and anticipation during the holiday season. Hess toy trucks were one of the most anticipated products every Christmas season in the 1960s and 1970s. Although introduced in 1964, they quickly established themselves as a holiday tradition by the 70s. Children and collectors alike loved them because they were extremely well-built and durable, a stark contrast to many other cheap plastic toys. The highlight of Hess trucks were their unique features, such as actual working lights and realistic designs like real-life commercial vehicles. The focus on quality and durability made them a desirable Christmas gift. Waiting to see which Hess truck would be released that year was part of the festive excitement. They represent a rare combination of high-quality toys and a treasured Christmas tradition. If you could go back in time and re-experience one of these moments, what would you choose and why? Tell us, what do you miss the most? Before social media, there was a physical, glittering wall filled with well wishes. Do you remember how Mom did it? Christmas was the time for real glittering paper cards, featuring angels, gold script, and red holly bells. In the 1970s, sending and receiving Christmas cards was a peak cultural tradition. As these cards began pouring in daily, Mom would perform an important ritual: hanging the cards. She would stretch a long string of yarn, usually red or green, across a doorway or along the mantel. Then, each card was carefully clipped using small clothespins, creating a wall filled with well wishes. This decorative card wall was a tangible measure of the family's social connectivity. The more cards there were, the fuller and warmer the house felt. Each card was a personal reminder that someone far away was thinking of you. For many families, receiving a card from distant relatives was the only annual means of contact. Card sending started in November, involving maintaining address lists by hand in special notebooks. The whole family would participate in stamping envelopes and writing personal messages. Today, receiving a physical card is a rarity, but in the 70s, mail carriers had to deliver tons of cards daily, and the post office had to hire thousands of temporary workers. We miss this tradition because it symbolized physical, tactile connection and the magic of receiving something personal and genuine through the mail. If you could go back in time and re-experience one of these moments, what would you choose and why? Tell us, what do you miss the most? While Woolworths offered a sense of rustic tradition, the Goebel Nativity set brought artistry and elegance to decorating. These figurines were made from high-quality porcelain and were meticulously hand-painted with intricate details, setting them apart from simpler sets. The sophistication and craftsmanship and material quality made the Goebel set a treasured collection, often passed down from generation to generation. They were not just decorations, they were highly regarded religious artworks. Every line, from the folds in the wise men's robes to the tenderness on the Virgin Mary's face, showed meticulous care. This contrasted with the chaotic, messy decorating style of the 70s, demonstrating that even in that era, there was room for formal and elaborate items. Their collector value remains intact today, with high prices in the antique collecting market. Displaying Goebel figurines showed respect for craftsmanship and was a symbol of the spiritual richness of Christmas. The dining table was no longer just a place to eat. It was the stage for the biggest Christmas dinner of the year, and the Lenox china set was its most formal attire. Lenox Christmas china brought a layer of refinement and formality to the holiday meal that everyday dinnerware couldn't match. Lenox was famous for using high-quality porcelain and often featured vibrant gold rims, combined with classic holiday motifs like holly leaves and ribbons. For many 1970s families, owning a Lenox china set was a sign of adulthood and a demonstration of formal hospitality. They only used their Lenox set for Christmas dinner and perhaps Thanksgiving, creating a formal and special atmosphere for the most important occasions. Storing and retrieving the Lenox set was a significant part of holiday preparation, signaling that the biggest meal of the year was about to happen. Every item, plates, bowls, teacups, was handled with maximum care. The Lenox china set transformed family meals into an event, elevating the Christmas experience to a level of luxury and tradition. The console stereo was an important household fixture in the 1960s and 1970s, and the centerpiece of the Christmas living room. If you look closely, you'll see this player was a luxurious large wooden cabinet, often placed prominently with integrated speakers and the turntable hidden beneath a lid. During the holiday season, this cabinet came alive as both a decorative item and a primary source of entertainment. Playing Christmas albums was a solemn ritual. Dad would carefully place the phonograph needle onto the vinyl disc, adjust the tracking arm, and then sit down like someone who had just tuned Christmas itself. The sound emanating from this large speaker system filled the living room space, blending all the scents and lights together. The gentle crackle of the vinyl accompanied the voice of Perry Como, creating an unparalleled cozy atmosphere. The console stereo was a symbol of family gatherings and shared music. It didn't just play music, it created a communal experience where everyone enjoyed the Christmas soundscape together in a focused way. The replacement by more compact audio equipment and the later arrival of larger color TVs gradually overshadowed the central role of this console stereo. These oversized plastic candy canes transformed ordinary driveways into a dazzling and bold festive walkway. In the 1970s, outdoor decorating began to become bolder, and General Foam Plastics candy canes were a symbol of that trend. They were oversized candy canes made of plastic and designed to withstand winter weather. Although not subtle, they were popular for their bright colors, usually red and white, and their durability. They were typically lined up along the driveway or walkway, creating a brilliant, joyful path leading to the front door. These plastic candy canes added a fun, extravagant element to outdoor Christmas displays, a change from traditional wreaths and white lights. Their appearance reflected the trend of families starting to expand their decorating efforts from the living room to the exterior space. They were part of the colorful decorating chaos we remember from that era. Look at these porcelain angels. They are symbols of the era's exquisite craftsmanship. Lefton porcelain angels were beloved figurines known for their exquisite craftsmanship and the grace they brought to holiday displays. Like Goebel, Lefton represented the quality and artistic side of 1970s Christmas collectibles. These porcelain figures were often hand-painted with intricate festive details, from their delicate wings to their flowing gowns and gentle faces. They often adorned mantels, side tables, or shelves alongside the ceramic Christmas tree and girly candles. The serenity and classical beauty of the Lefton angels provided a wonderful balance to the vibrant chaos of tinsel and shiny bright glass balls. They were part of the collection of items treasured by mothers and grandmothers. They remind us of the importance of items made with love and attention to the smallest detail in creating the Christmas atmosphere. The perfect Christmas tinsel, shimmering like a silver waterfall, but it turned out we were using a toxic metal on our trees. This is an unforgettable decorating trend of the 1960s and early 1970s, though for health reasons. The sparkling silver strands of tinsel used to decorate every Christmas tree back then were not plastic. They were made from real lead foil until 1972. Lead was invented in Germany in 1610 and created an unmatched sparkle that modern materials cannot imitate. Lead tinsel had heavy weight, allowing it to hang perfectly straight, creating a magical silver waterfall effect on the branches. A box of 1,000 strands cost only 39 cents in 1965. Families carefully saved and reused lead tinsel year after year, handling each strand like a precious item. Children spent hours placing one strand at a time, although many ended up tossing handfuls for instant sparkle. However, the FDA banned lead tinsel in 1972 due to the risk of poisoning, especially for children who might ingest them. Manufacturers switched to aluminum and plastic, but no material captured the unique properties of lead. Mylar tinsel later was lighter, easily tangled, and generated static electricity. Ultimately, many families stopped using tinsel entirely, and the heavy, characteristic sparkle of the 60s tree only exists in photos. Even if chipped, even if the donkey had to be glued back together, the Woolworth's set held a sacred place because Christmas is about tradition, not perfection. The Woolworth's Nativity set was an overly familiar part of 70s holiday decorating culture. It was not an elaborate or expensive set, but it was considered sacred because of its traditional value. The Woolworth's Nativity set was made of hand-painted and slightly chalky figurines. This set was taken out of the same old box every year, and the signs of wear and tear were part of its charm. Often the infant Jesus figurine would be chipped at a corner, one of the wise men might be slightly tilted, and the donkey figurine had been glued back together multiple times after minor accidents. However, no one cared about the imperfection. The whole experience was about tradition and the recreation of the core story of Christmas. This set was usually placed on the mantle or a side table, serving as a rustic and heartfelt reminder of the true meaning of the holiday season. The rusticity of these chalky clay figures contrasted with the more elaborate porcelain sets, emphasizing that 70s Christmas was about simple, sincere keepsakes. What do you remember most about Christmas gatherings in the 1960s and 70s? The decorations, the music, or the unforgettable appetizers that always disappeared first? Back then, holiday party food had its own kind of magic. Tables were filled with quirky cheese creations, bacon-wrapped surprises, molded salads, and seafood treats. Families saved for the most special nights of the year. Today, let's revisit those warm, shimmering celebrations and rediscover 25 Christmas appetizers that once defined the season, but have quietly faded from our modern holiday tables. Rumaki. If you walked into a Christmas party in the mid-1960s, chances are you'd be greeted by the warm glow of aluminum trees, the soft crackle of vinyl holiday records, and a platter of rumaki quietly stealing the spotlight. It didn't look like anything Grandma made in the 1940s. It looked exciting, modern, and a little daring. The kind of appetizer that made guests lean in with curiosity. Rumaki was born from America's post-war fascination with Polynesian flavors. After soldiers returned home from the Pacific, tiki bars and tropical-themed restaurants swept across the country by Christmas. Even suburban living rooms wanted a taste of that faraway magic. Hosts would marinate chicken livers and water chestnuts overnight in soy sauce, brown sugar, and ginger, then wrap each piece in bacon and broil it until caramelized. The result was a bold mix of salty, sweet, smoky, and crunchy, unlike anything else on the holiday table. But rumaki wasn't just about flavor. It captured a mindset. Families of that era didn't have extravagant holiday menus or specialty ingredients, yet they embraced creativity with whatever was available. If they could see today's gourmet Christmas spreads, they'd probably smile and shake their heads. For them, joy came from the effort, the sharing, and the small surprises that made a simple gathering feel special. And rumaki was exactly that. A little bite of courage, curiosity, and Christmas cheer. Ham and pickle roll-ups. Before holiday appetizers became elaborate or chef-inspired, some of the most beloved dishes were born from pure practicality. Ham and pickle roll-ups are a perfect example. A simple, no-cook appetizer that showed up at countless Christmas gatherings because it was quick, affordable, and unexpectedly addictive. The process couldn't have been easier. Thin slices of deli ham were laid flat, spread with a generous layer of softened cream cheese, and topped with a whole dill pickle. Then everything was rolled tightly, chilled until firm, and cut into neat little pinwheels. What looked plain on the outside delivered a surprising burst of flavor: salty ham, creamy cheese, and that sharp, tangy crunch from the pickle. Some families added a thin smear of mustard or Worcestershire to the cream cheese for extra depth, while others used sweet pickles for a milder bite. These roll-ups weren't showpieces, but they vanished faster than almost anything else on the table. Kids loved them because they felt like finger food made just for them. Adults appreciated their bold, refreshing flavor amid a sea of heavy holiday dishes. Pigs in a blanket. Pigs in a blanket, in their original form, were a far cry from the modern crescent roll versions we see today. These early holiday favorites started with full-size sausages, breakfast links, bratwursts, or whatever the family could afford, dipped in a homemade batter rather than wrapped in pre-made dough. The batter was simple: flour, eggs, milk, and just a touch of sugar to help the outside brown beautifully in the oven. Each sausage was coated and placed carefully on a greased baking sheet, then baked until the exterior puffed up into a golden, slightly crisp shell. Once cooled just enough to handle, the rolls were sliced into rounds, revealing a warm, steamy center surrounded by a fluffy layer of bread. A plate piled high with these hearty bites could feed a room full of guests with little effort and almost no expense. Paired with mustard or a tangy dipping sauce, they delivered the perfect mix of savory sausage and comforting homemade batter. And while they weren't fancy or delicate, nobody cared. These were the kind of appetizers people hovered around, grabbing them straight off the platter while making conversation. Proof that the most memorable holiday foods were often the simplest ones. Chicken liver mousse. Chicken liver mousse was one of those appetizers that instantly revealed who at the party was adventurous and who preferred to hover near the cheese tray. Pale pink, silky smooth, and served in elegant little bowls, it carried an air of sophistication that felt worlds apart from everyday cooking. For home entertainers of the era, mastering it wasn't just about flavor, it was about proving they could bring a touch of French refinement into an American living room. The process required precision. Chicken livers were sautéed gently with butter and shallots until barely cooked through, then blended piping hot with more butter, a splash of brandy or cognac, heavy cream, and herb. When strained through a fine sieve, the mixture transformed into a mousse so velvety, it almost melted at the touch of a spoon. After chilling overnight beneath a thin seal of clarified butter, it was ready to be served with toast points or crackers. The flavor was rich, earthy, and undeniably bold. An acquired taste for some, a holiday highlight for others. If this classic holiday bite brings back the smell, the warmth, and the memories of gatherings long past, tap the like button below so we can keep these cherished traditions alive for the next generation. Sausage balls. Sausage balls earned their place at holiday gatherings not through elegance, but through sheer dependability. You could always count on them to disappear first, made from just 3 ingredients: breakfast sausage, grated cheddar cheese, and biscuit. They were the kind of appetizer that filled the kitchen with a warm, savory smell long before guests arrived. The mixture was kneaded by hand until the cheese and baking mix melded with the sausage fat, forming a dough-like texture that could be rolled into small, bite-sized balls. As they baked, the edges crisped while the center stayed tender and slightly crumbly. A good batch released just enough fat to brown beautifully without turning greasy, a balance every seasoned home cook quietly prided themselves on. They were perfect served warm, straight from the oven, but still held their charm at room temperature. Ideal for long evenings of gift exchanges and endless conversations. What made sausage balls memorable wasn't their simplicity. It was the comfort they brought. A platter placed on a holiday table meant abundance, warmth, and the kind of hospitality that didn't need decoration or fuss. Oysters Rockefeller Dip. Oysters. Rockefeller Dip brought a touch of New Orleans luxury to holiday tables without requiring anyone to shuck a single shell. Instead of serving whole oysters, intimidating for many home cooks at the time, families embraced this warm, bubbling dip that delivered all the same rich flavors in a more approachable form. The base began with onions and garlic sautéed in generous amounts of butter until fragrant. Fresh spinach was added next, wilting down into the mixture before chopped canned oysters and their briny liquor were stirred in a splash of Pernod or another anise-flavored liqueur gave it that signature aromatic bite, followed by heavy cream and plenty of Parmesan to thicken everything into a velvety, savory mixture. Once transferred to a baking dish and topped with breadcrumbs and more cheese, it baked until golden and gently simmering at the edges. Served with crackers or toasted baguette slices, the dip offered a bold, ocean-kissed flavor, the kind of appetizer adults gravitated toward while children eyed it with suspicion. It felt festive, indulgent, and slightly adventurous, the kind of dish that made a living room in Ohio or Kansas feel just a little closer to the French Quarter. Vienna sausages. Vienna sausages may seem like an unlikely Christmas appetizer today, but for decades they held a quiet place on many holiday tables. Compact, inexpensive, and endlessly adaptable, these little canned sausages were a pantry staple that home cooks relied on when budgets were tight or unexpected guests arrived. Most families served them straight from the can, arranged neatly on a small relish tray alongside pickles and olives. Others preferred to warm them in a sweet and tangy sauce made from grape jelly and chili sauce, the same combination beloved in cocktail meatballs. A few creative hosts wrapped them in thin strips of bacon or pastry dough before baking, transforming them into miniature savory bites that were surprisingly satisfying. Their mild, salty flavor made them strangely appealing to kids, who often speared them eagerly with toothpicks, while adults appreciated how effortlessly they filled out a holiday spread. For many working-class households, Vienna sausages weren't a conversation piece. They were practical, reliable, and familiar. Cheeseball hedgehog. Long before holiday appetizers became glossy, Instagram-ready displays, there was one dish that managed to steal the spotlight with nothing more than charm and a little imagination. The cheeseball hedgehog. It didn't need fancy ingredients or perfect presentation. It captured attention simply because it was fun, unexpected, and unmistakably homemade. The base always started the same way: softened cream cheese, sharp cheddar, a splash of Worcestershire, and whatever secret touch each family claimed as their own. Some added chopped pecans for richness, others folded in dried beef for saltiness, while a few ambitious hosts stirred in ranch seasoning before it was cool. Once the mixture was shaped into a plump little body, the real magic happened. Hundreds of crunchy quill, pretzel sticks, sliced almonds, or potato sticks were pressed in one by one, turning an ordinary cheese ball into a delightful creature everyone wanted to admire before eating. Kids loved it because it felt like a toy. Adults loved it because it broke the ice and made the party feel lighter. And for the home cooks who crafted it, the hedgehog was proof that even simple ingredients could spark joy. In an era when budgets were tight but spirits were high, a dish that made people smile was worth more than any gourmet spread. Deviled egg. In the 1960s and 70s, no hostess dared hold a Christmas gathering without a chilled platter of these perfectly piped bites resting proudly beside the ham and the relish tray. They were the kind of appetizer people reached for almost automatically, as familiar and comforting as the sound of Bing Crosby playing softly in the background. But Christmas deviled eggs weren't the quick, casual versions we see at picnics today. Back then, they were mini works of art. Eggs were boiled with precision, peeled carefully so not a single dent marred the white surface, then sliced cleanly in half. The yolks were mashed with mayonnaise, mustard, relish, vinegar, and, depending on the family, anchovy paste, deviled ham, or a dash of paprika for warmth. The filling wasn't spooned in, it was piped using a star tip to create elegant swirls worthy of a magazine cover. Some families topped them with tiny shrimp. Others added olives or strips of pimento for festive color. What made deviled eggs special wasn't the cost or the complexity, it was the pride. At a time when most ingredients were humble and every dollar mattered, elevating something as ordinary as an egg felt like a little Christmas miracle all on its own. Bacon-wrapped Smokies. Not every Christmas appetizer from the 60s and 70s came from glossy magazines or upscale cookbooks. Some were born right in the heart of working-class kitchens, where simplicity and flavor mattered far more than presentation. Bacon-wrapped Smokies were one of those dishes, a humble crowd pleaser that showed up at holiday gatherings from church basements to neighborhood potlucks. The ingredients were as straightforward as they come: cocktail wieners, bacon, and a handful of brown sugar. Hosts would slice the bacon into thirds, wrap each strip tightly around a tiny sausage, secure it with a toothpick, and line dozens of them across a baking sheet. As they baked, the bacon crisped and the brown sugar melted into a sticky glaze that coated the Smokies like candied meat. The smell drifting from the oven was enough to pull every kid into the kitchen, long before the platter hit the table. Jell-O molds and French hors d'oeuvres might have looked elegant, but Smokies were irresistible. They disappeared faster than anything else at the party, usually eaten straight off the tray while still warm. Shrimp cocktail. Shrimp cocktail was one of those appetizers that could make any holiday gathering feel a little more special, no matter how tight the budget was. Even families who rarely splurged during the year often picked up a small bag of frozen shrimp for Christmas. It was their way of adding a touch of elegance to the celebration. The shrimp were usually the small, pre-cooked variety, thawed under cold water, and arranged neatly around a simple glass dish or metal tray. What truly made the dish shine was the cocktail sauce. Most home cooks mixed it themselves: ketchup as the base, a generous spoonful of horseradish for heat, a squeeze of lemon, and sometimes a dash of Worcestershire sauce. That bold, tangy flavor was unmistakable. The kind of sauce that cleared your sinuses and woke everyone up. When the tray hit the table, people instinctively gathered around it. There was something satisfying about that quick dip and bite ritual, the cold snap of shrimp against the bright, spicy sauce. Did your family ever serve shrimp cocktail during the holidays? Share your memory below. Tomato aspic mold. If you ever stood in front of a crowded holiday buffet and hesitated before taking something, chances are it was the tomato aspic mold. It didn't blend into the background the way crackers or cheese trays did. This dish practically announced itself. Tall, glossy, and perfectly sculpted, it trembled with the slightest movement, making guests pause between curiosity and caution. The recipe was deceptively simple. Warm tomato juice mixed with lemon, Worcestershire, celery salt, and a little heat from hot sauce. Gelatin brought it all together, transforming liquid into a bright, firm shape. Home cooks often folded in finely chopped celery, olives, or even tiny shrimp before pouring the mixture into a decorative mold. Hours later came the risky part, unmolding. Every hostess knew the anxiety of that moment. Would it slide out cleanly or collapse in front of everyone? The flavor was bold, tangy, and savory, an unexpected break from all the creamy dips and rich appetizers. Some guests loved its refreshing bite. Others politely avoided it, but whether adored or debated, the aspic mold always sparked conversation, which was part of its charm. Stuffed celery boats. Some appetizers earned their place on the holiday table not because they were extravagant, but because they brought balance. Stuffed celery boats were exactly that. Crisp, cool, and refreshing, the kind of bite that quietly cut through all the rich, buttery dishes crowding the buffet. They weren't glamorous, but every Christmas spread felt incomplete without them. The preparation was beautifully simple. Fresh celery stalks were washed, trimmed, and sliced into short, sturdy pieces, forming little canoes. The filling was where each family showed its personality. The classic version combined cream cheese with blue cheese or Roquefort, beaten until smooth and tangy. Others preferred a milder mixture with chopped pimientos, walnuts, or even dates for a hint of sweetness. The mixture was spooned or piped into each celery groove, creating a contrast of creamy filling against a crunchy base. A light sprinkle of paprika or chopped nuts added color for the holiday table. Stuffed celery boats may not have been the star of the party, but they played an indispensable supporting role. They refreshed the palate, reset the appetite, and offered a clean, crisp counterpoint to heavier dishes. And in their gentle simplicity, they reflected something true about mid-century holiday cooking. Not every dish had to dazzle to be meaningful. Bacon-wrapped water chestnuts. Long before bacon became a culinary trend, this dish used it in one of the most irresistible ways. Wrapped tightly around crisp, juicy water chestnuts that popped with every bite. Most families bought canned whole water chestnuts from the supermarket, drained them well, and marinated them briefly in a mixture of soy sauce, brown sugar, and sometimes a little Worcestershire sauce. Each piece was then wrapped in half a strip of bacon and secured with a toothpick. As they baked, the bacon turned deep golden and caramelized, coating the chestnuts in a smoky sweet glaze that made them nearly impossible to walk past without grabbing one. They came out of the oven sizzling, with edges crisp and centers still cool and crunchy, a contrast that guests remembered long after the decorations were taken down. These little bites weren't fancy, but they offered the perfect combination of savory, sweet, and smoky, making them a guaranteed crowd pleaser at countless holiday gatherings. Still with us on this nostalgic journey? Drop a yes in the comments so we know you're enjoying it. Deviled ham spread. Deviled ham spread was one of those dependable appetizers that quietly anchored holiday snack tables. It didn't need bright colors or fancy garnishes. Its charm came from the salty, savory punch packed into every creamy bite. For hosts juggling multiple dishes at once, this spread was a lifesaver. Fast to mix, easy to dress up, and guaranteed to disappear quickly. Most home cooks started with a can of deviled ham, the familiar rectangular tin that lived in many American cupboards. Once emptied into a bowl, it was blended with mayonnaise or softened cream cheese to mellow its sharpness. Finely chopped celery, onion, or sweet pickles added crunch, while a dash of mustard or paprika deepened the flavor. Some families stretched the mixture with hard-boiled eggs, turning it into something richer and more substantial. Spread on crackers, stuffed into celery sticks, or used as a filling for tiny cocktail sandwiches, deviled ham was surprisingly versatile. Its bold, smoky flavor felt hearty during cold December nights, making it a quiet favorite among adults. Cheese and pickle skewers. Cheese and pickle skewers were the kind of appetizer that looked almost too simple to be memorable until you tasted one. These tiny bites delivered a perfect balance of creamy, sharp, and tangy, making them a surprise favorite at countless holiday gatherings. Hosts typically used cubes of cheddar, Colby, or Monterey Jack, cutting the blocks into neat little squares that stacked easily onto toothpicks. Next came the pickles, most often small gherkins or bread and butter slices, chosen for their sweet and sour punch. Some families added a slice of salami or a cocktail onion between the layers, turning each skewer into a miniature tower of contrasting flavors. The result was colorful, cheerful, and endlessly snackable. Kids liked the bright look. Adults appreciated how the pickles cut through the richness of the cheese. And from a host perspective, these skewers were practically magic. Inexpensive, impossible to mess up, and quick to assemble even at the last minute. Ham roll-ups. Ham roll-ups were one of those appetizers that vanished almost as quickly as they could be made. Their appeal wasn't flashy presentation or exotic ingredients. It was the effortless combination of salty ham, creamy filling, and a satisfying bite-sized shape that felt just right on a holiday platter. Cooks usually started with thin slices of deli ham, the kind folded neatly in plastic packages at the supermarket. Each slice was laid flat and spread with a mixture that varied from home to home. Sometimes plain cream cheese, sometimes a blend of cream cheese and chopped green onions, sweet relish, or finely diced pimentos for color. The ham was then rolled tightly into a log and chilled until firm. Once sliced into neat spirals, the pieces revealed cheerful pink and white swirls that looked surprisingly festive. Some families tucked a pickle spear inside before rolling, giving the center a crunchy, tangy kick. Others preferred the classic version, simple, soft, and savory. Ham roll-ups fit perfectly into the fast-paced hosting style of the 60s and 70s. Inexpensive ingredients, minimal effort, and a final product that felt much more special than the preparation suggested. Cheese puff pastries. Cheese puff pastries were the kind of appetizer that made a holiday table feel just a little more elegant, even in a modest home. Their golden, flaky layers looked impressive, but the secret behind them was wonderfully simple. Most cooks relied on store-bought puff pastry or biscuit dough, turning an everyday ingredient into something party-worthy. The filling was usually a blend of shredded cheddar or Swiss cheese, mixed with a touch of mustard or Worcestershire sauce for depth. Some families added minced onions or chopped pimentos, giving the filling a festive color and a gentle bite. A small spoonful of the mixture was placed onto each square of dough, which was then folded, pinched, or rolled into little pockets before baking. As the pastries baked, the kitchen filled with the unmistakable smell of warm butter and melting cheese. When they emerged from the oven puffed and golden, they were almost impossible to resist. Crisp on the outside, soft and savory in the center. Guests often grabbed them straight off the tray, too impatient to wait for them to cool. Shrimp cocktail wreath. Shrimp cocktail was already a holiday favorite by the mid-century years, but the shrimp cocktail wreath took things to a whole new level, turning a simple appetizer into a centerpiece worthy of the dining room table. Cooks would start by arranging crisp lettuce leaves or sprigs of parsley in a perfect ring on a circular platter. Then came the shrimp, usually the small, pre-cooked frozen kind that fit most family budgets. Each piece was carefully placed in a neat pattern around the wreath, their pink curves mimicking ornaments. A bowl of cocktail sauce sat proudly in the center, bright red and tangy, giving the whole display an unmistakably festive look. Families loved this dish because it felt upscale without being expensive. You didn't need fresh Gulf shrimp or fancy garnishes. Even a modest grocery bag could create something that looked impressive on the table. And when guests arrived, they always paused for a moment, smiling at the creativity before reaching in for a bite. Pimento cheese pinwheels. Pimento cheese pinwheels were the kind of appetizer that made people stop mid-conversation just to see how they were made. They looked fancy, like something from a magazine spread, but in truth, they were among the easiest holiday bites a home cook could prepare. Everything started with classic southern pimento cheese. Sharp cheddar shredded by hand, mayonnaise stirred until smooth, diced pimentos for color, and a little onion or paprika depending on family tradition. Instead of serving it as a spread, the mixture was generously smeared across soft flour tortillas or thin sandwich bread slices that had been rolled flat with a kitchen glass. Once tightly rolled, the log was chilled until firm, then sliced into perfect spirals that revealed that festive red and gold swirl. These cheerful little rounds appeared at countless holiday open houses and office parties because they traveled well, filled a platter quickly, and offered a creamy richness that felt indulgent without straining anyone's budget. Kids loved their mild flavor, adults appreciated their nostalgia, and hosts adored how effortlessly they disappeared. Now, did your family ever make these colorful little pinwheels for holiday parties? If you remember them or still make them today, share your memories in the comments below. Marinated mushrooms. Among all the appetizers that crowded holiday tables, marinated mushrooms offered something a little different. Bright, tangy, and wonderfully aromatic. They weren't flashy, but their flavor delivered a quiet sophistication that made them a favorite among adults who wanted something beyond the usual cheese and cracker fare. Most families used small white button mushrooms, the inexpensive kind found in every supermarket produce section. After a quick blanch to soften them slightly, the mushrooms were tossed into a warm marinade made from olive oil or salad oil, vinegar, garlic, dried oregano, crushed red pepper, and sometimes a pinch of sugar to balance the acidity. As they cooled, the mushrooms soaked in every bit of that garlicky, herby brine, turning into tender, flavorful bites that grew better with every passing hour. By the time guests arrived, the dish had fully transformed. The mushrooms glistened under the dining room lights, carrying a perfume of herbs that drifted across the table. They were served with toothpicks alongside olives, pickled onions, and cold cuts, a small but important part of the holiday relish trays so common in the 1960s and 70s. Cheese-stuffed dates. Cheese-stuffed dates were one of those appetizers that quietly elevated any holiday gathering. They didn't draw attention with bold colors or elaborate shapes. Yet the moment someone tasted one, the platter emptied fast. The magic came from contrast, sweet, sticky dates paired with a cool, creamy filling that felt surprisingly luxurious for such a tiny bite. Most home cooks used pitted dates sold in slim plastic trays at the grocery store each winter. The centers were filled with a small spoonful of cream cheese or blue cheese, depending on the family's taste. Some rolled the stuffed dates in chopped nuts, walnuts, pecans, or almonds, to add texture and richness. Others wrapped them in thin bacon slices and baked them until the edges crisped, turning them into warm, smoky morsels that vanished almost instantly. These little bites fit perfectly into the hosting style of the 60s and 70s. Simple ingredients, quick assembly, and a payoff far greater than the effort required. They felt special without being complicated, indulgent without costing much, and festive enough to earn a permanent place on many Christmas platters. Holiday olive cheese spread. Olive cheese spread was the kind of appetizer that always seemed to appear right when guests were getting hungry, but dinner was still an hour away. It didn't rely on fancy ingredients, just a clever blend of flavors that made people linger around the coffee table a little longer. The base was usually a mixture of softened cream cheese and shredded cheddar, beaten together until smooth. Into that went chopped green olives, pimentos, and sometimes a handful of black olives for extra depth. A dash of Worcestershire sauce or a sprinkle of garlic powder gave the mixture a gentle, savory kick, turning the spread into something far more interesting than the humble ingredients suggested. Once chilled, it was served with crispy crackers, celery sticks, or thinly sliced baguette. The salty bite of the olives against the richness of the cheese made it surprisingly addictive. Just one more. Quickly became 4 or 5 hosts loved it because it could be made hours in advance. And guests loved it because it felt nostalgic, comforting, and bold all at once. Sardine canapés. At a time when canned fish was a pantry staple, many home cooks discovered that sardines, cheap, flavorful, and surprisingly versatile, could be dressed up into something worthy of the Christmas table. Most versions began with thin rounds of toasted bread or crackers, spread lightly with softened butter or a swipe of cream cheese. A sardine fillet, drained and carefully split in half, was laid on top. Some families added sliced olives for a pop of color, while others used a dab of Dijon mustard or a squeeze of lemon to brighten the flavor. A sprinkle of paprika or chopped parsley finished the look, giving each canapé a festive, almost European touch. What made these bites memorable wasn't just the taste, it was how grown up they felt. Children usually walked right past them, but Adults hovered nearby, picking them up two at a time while chatting by the fireplace or the punch bowl. Cocktail meatballs. Cocktail meatballs earned their legendary status for one simple reason. They delivered big flavor with almost no effort. At a time when holiday hosts balanced cooking, cleaning, and entertaining all at once, these little bites were a dependable favorite. Warm, saucy, and always the first empty dish on the table. Most families started with homemade meatballs made from ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs and egg and whatever seasonings were on hand. Once browned, the meatballs were simmered in a sauce that became iconic during the 60s and 70s. A mix of grape jelly and chili sauce. It sounded strange, even a bit questionable to newcomers, but the result was unforgettable. The jelly melted into a glossy sweetness while the chili sauce added tang and a mild kick, creating a glaze that clung perfectly to every bite. As they bubbled in the slow cooker, the aroma drifted through the house. Sweet, savory, and undeniably festive. Guests would hover nearby with toothpicks, fishing out meatballs before they even made it to the serving platter. These memories will become the legacy we want to preserve and pass on to future generations. If these moments have touched your heart and recalled the golden age of your youth, please share your favorite memory that we haven't mentioned. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Back to Yesterday so you don't miss any more trips back in time.